Hello, my name is Jeremy. I'm starting these videos. I'd like to get into speaking, public speaking. It's something I've desired to do for a long time, but I actually didn't think I had a message to share for an extremely long time. This video is just going to kind of be my story, and then eventually I'd like to add more stories that kind of just delve into more things and go deeper into detail. So my story is I grew up in Indiana. Till I was 15 years old. Fairly normal kid. Went to school, played some sports, had friends, mom, dad, one brother, one sister. You know, your typical American family, dog, just the normal stuff. What I found out later on was I wasn't normal. I actually had extremely low self-esteem, especially for a kid. My parents didn't treat me badly. They didn't talk down to me. They didn't treat me like I was a lesser individual. But it was still something that was inside of me. I still to this day don't know where it came from, but it was there. And part of that is I lied to people. I lied to my friends, the people that already liked me and hung out with me. I'd lie to everybody, make up stories about where I've been and what I've done and who I'm meeting and where I'm going and things like that. When I was 15 years old, we moved out to Utah. Now, Utah, I didn't know anybody, and what a great thing. I could be anybody I wanted. I could make myself into what I wanted to be. Well, I still had extremely low self-esteem, so what did I do? I lied. I lied to people a lot. And what I've come to realize in my later years is people start to realize they can start seeing through things. Not real well, but they can start, and they don't like liars. And so because of this, I didn't have a whole lot of friends, and most of my friends were kind of drug addicts, lazy, weren't going to be anything, just kind of not real good people. Well, my freshman and sophomore year, I was a typical kid. I went to school. I did okay with grades. I wrestled. I played football, and I was actually pretty decent in wrestling, and I was okay in football. Well, I had started to realize the lying thing wasn't working. So what I did was I started to do what my friends did, and that's not good when your friends are lazy, drug addicts, things of that nature. And so my junior year, I kind of started to slack off as far as the sports go, and I had stopped going to school as much. And by the time I hit my senior year, I was completely done with sports, and I had almost completely stopped going to school. I'm actually surprised I didn't get kicked out. Well, it was time for graduation, and I had come to the understanding that I wasn't going to graduate. I was fine with that. Well, the notices came out, and I did graduate. It was a shock to me. I'm fairly certain it was a shock to my mom and my dad. And so I went through graduation and everything. And once you graduate high school, you know everything. So what did I do? I moved out of my parents' house. Who do I move out with? The friends that I had, the drug addicts, the lazy guys. I moved in with two drug addicts who didn't know how to keep a job. Well, if you haven't had the chance to move in with a drug addict and be completely financially responsible for everything in the apartment, you should try it. It's a great life lesson. Anyways, about 2 years into this life experiment, my dad got in touch with me, and he basically told me, you've got to do something, and he strongly suggested the military. Now, my whole life, I had extremely low self-esteem. Because of that, I never really worked towards anything. I never strived towards anything. I didn't feel like I deserved anything. And so I did join the military, but I did just enough to get by. I didn't show off. I didn't put myself out there. I didn't grow immensely while I was in there. It is a time that I'm extremely glad I did. But at the end of the day, I didn't do anything to make my 8 years substantial. So I get out of the military. I get a job. Same thing. I didn't work hard. I did enough to get by. And so a few years go by, and I am working in a metal fabrication shop. I'm a welder. I'm a shop foreman. And the company was actually going to go out of business. And the owner, being the great man he was, he gave us a couple weeks notice and said, hey, we're going to have to shut the doors. You need to find a job. And so I was dating a girl at the time, and she said, hey, I know this guy named Steve. He's looking for some people. Maybe I can get you in touch with him. Steve wanted me to come on as a salesman, and Steve did warehousing as far as racking and safety equipment and things of that nature. I wasn't a salesman. told him no way, no how. He said, you know what, that's fine. How about you come on and just do repairs for me, do repairs for my customers, things like that. And so I agreed. Now, Steve was not only a business owner of a warehousing company, but he also wrote books, and he was a motivational guy, not a speaker, but he was a motivational guy. And it was pretty cool because he had these things every Monday he called sales meetings. The company was small. He had me in the meetings, but they weren't sales meetings. They were actually meetings about how you deserve to earn whatever you want. And I still had a hard time with this. I was still, not real confident. I wasn't comfortable with myself or my skills for that matter. And so I listened and I liked the idea of it, but I still couldn't get into it. Well, Steve and I got to talk, and Steve asked me a very valid question. And I'm going to ask you the question. If money was no object, what would you do? Every day. What would you get up out of bed for every single day if money was no object? That's kind of a cool question, because if money's no object, you're probably not going to go to work. You go to work to earn money. Well, what would I do? This is a tough question for me. It's not really something I've considered, I've contemplated. Well, I'm an off-road fanatic. I love Toyotas, I love Jeeps, I love these things. That's what I do. I would get an awesome off-road vehicle, and that's what I would do. I'd travel all over the country, all over the world, and that's what I told him. That's what I want to do. And Steve's like, you deserve that. You just have to work for it. You deserve anything you're willing to put your heart and soul into. And mind you, still not a real good self-esteem, but it's starting to brew, the fire's lit. And so I worked with Steve for a couple of years, and the whole time we're going through this and going through this and going through this. He introduces me to people like Tony Robbins, Les Brown, very influential people. And it's pretty cool because at first I had a really tough time with it, because the big guys all have these stories and, and where do you turn? I didn't have, I wasn't born on a floor with my twin like Les Brown. I didn't see one of my parents get so mad about not being able to afford a dinner, they got mad at somebody who brought them dinner. I didn't have these struggles, we weren't rich by any means, and we weren't well off, but we had everything we needed. My dad always made sure we had what we needed. And so I worked with Steve for 2 years, and him and I get in a disagreement. We end up going our own ways. What ended up happening was I decided to start my own company. Because I was working with Steve, and I was able to start understanding that I do deserve what I want and what I'm willing to work for. That's what I brought into my company. And there's people that do not want to own their own company. That's perfectly fine. I had a guy working for me that he was perfectly fine working for somebody, but he wanted to be somewhere that he was appreciated. And that's what I tried to do. So a few years go by. My mom ended up getting sick. I ended up having to move back home, which I'm extremely grateful for. I was so glad I was at a point in my life that I could just stop and I could go. And I can be here now to help her. And so this whole thing about a child with low self-esteem is really rough for me, because I still get pulled all the time. It's in my head. It's something I'm working through that I don't know how to think highly of myself. I'm a very logical person, but it's still something I work on every day. And so what I want you to understand, and what I want you to take away from this video, is that you deserve whatever you want. You deserve it. If you want to earn $1 million a year, you deserve it. If you're willing to go out there and work and sacrifice, everything takes sacrifice. If you're willing to do this, you deserve it. If you want to have a, husband, wife, 17 kids, you deserve it. You will have to sacrifice. You will have to work very, very hard, but you deserve it. These are all things that I've learned. And I don't want you guys to have to wait till you're in your 30s to understand this. And at the same time, I don't want you to have to be in your 60s and still feel the way that I did. Like I said, I still have these feelings, but they're not real deep and ingrained anymore. I can work through them. Who wants to listen to somebody in their mid to upper 30s when they're in high school or, college? Who wants to listen to that? I haven't made it big. I'm not a multi-millionaire. I'm not even at the point that I get to speak publicly yet. That's what I want. That's what I'm working towards. I work a job during the day. I come home and I work on these videos. And what I'll be honest with you is it's tough. I work 10-hour work days. I live almost an hour away from where I work. It's tough, but you deserve what you're willing to work for. I'm willing to sacrifice certain things in my life to get me to where I want to be. Will I be a public speaker? Yes, I will. Will I be one tomorrow? Probably not. Not unless somebody jumps on this video and gets a hold of me and says, I need you now. But I will be there. So this is what this video is about. You deserve it. What are you willing to work for? I'm leaving you with this. If money was no object, what would you get up for every single morning to do? This is Jeremy. I appreciate your time. You guys all have a great night.